It's the Brad and John Show.
The Brad and John Show. Today's date is July 29th. It's a So Happy It's Tuesday, S-H-I, you know the other thing. And we do this show live from 7 to 8 o'clock every single morning, Monday through Friday, except when John and I can't make it. But other than that, we do it every single morning. And then we put it up on a bunch of different channels. We put it up on the acoustictorture.com channel. We put it on the bjshow.co channel, the bjshow.us, bradstop3.com, all those various websites. Did I miss anything, John?
It's time for acoustic torture.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
Acoustic torture.
It is time for Brad's Top 3. Okay, yesterday, I was not going looking for this.
Are you going to play a jingle or not, Brad?
I did. It's playing right now, John.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I mean, I obviously can't hear anything in my headphones because, you know.
That's because John has an old iPhone that does not have a ringer on it, and he can't hear anything. No.
Sure.
Okay, yesterday, I'm just, cruising through X, John's favorite place. And what do I see? I see a post from our buddy B2 Bill Eigel. And he's complaining about someone being a RINO. Okay, John, I have to be honest with you. I've said this before. I'm so sick and tired of this RINO BS.
Yeah, why is that, Brad?
So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to
What are you going to do, Brad?
I'm going to start my own caucus. And you know what my caucus is going to be called?
The one-eyed, one-legged flying rhino eaters.
The Super Freedom Caucus, okay?
Oh, Super Freedom. Okay, tell us about it, Brad.
The Super Freedom Caucus. And there's going to be a purity test that Bill Eigel couldn't pass if he studied for 10 years.
You mean he has to show his hymen?
No.
A different kind of purity
See,
test.
the crazy thing about this is that I don't get this whole RINO thing, and to the point where and what's interesting about it is John's going to laugh about this because I think we did this live on the air. Was it you that came up with this or me came up with Kino, which is Christian in name only, okay?
You came up with that, yeah.
Isn't a true Christian welcoming of everyone? Isn't that what Jesus did when he came?
I think that, yeah, and Brad, we've discussed this a few times. I think the answer is yes. And I also think the answer is Christians still have a doctrine, if you will, that guides their behavior and what they say is right and wrong. So if I'm the Freedom Caucus, I say, yes, we are open to speak to anyone, but to be a member of our caucus or to identify as a real member of the Freedom Caucus, you need to believe in this set of principles. So, yeah, Brad, I think it's not completely different from any form of religion.
You think it's not different? So in other words, you can say as a Christian, you can say, oh, you're Jewish, I don't like you?
No, that's not what I said at all. So don't mischaracterize what I said. Your point, Brad, which you've beaten to death on the show, is that you're so sick and tired of the RINO conversation and the idiot Freedom Caucus and all this stuff like that. And I say that they have a right to free assembly, just like the Lutherans have a right to be different from, Brad, and have a right to be different from the Methodists who are different from the Catholics. And so the Freedom Caucus says, if you want to join our group or identify as a member of our group, here's our principles and here's what you need to adhere to. And so if you're the Franklin County Republican Central Committee, let's bring this closer to home, and you say, we're not going to endorse any set of candidates that doesn't agree with us on these 10 things. And you could call that a purity test. You could call it a scorecard, whatever you want to call it. Then we won't support you. I think they have a right to do that. Just like I have a right as a voter to say, hey, don't really care if the state rep candidate gets this endorsement or that endorsement, or they score X amount on this group's scorecard. I'm going to make up my own mind.
But don't you think that they have their nose up in the air just a little bit, maybe a lot?
Maybe some of the people who don't like the Freedom Caucus have their nose up in the air and say, I can't believe they're so not welcoming to people. Did I ever tell you the story about how I'm an online pastor? And I'm like, yes, Brad, we know.
Okay.
I think the best revelation from yesterday, Brad, I don't mean to get you off topic, but I thought when you started doing Brad's Top 3, I'm like, this is perfect for Brad because he can drive into the studio and not know what he's going to say and just free ball a Brad's Top 3 every day.
John?
You
If I showed you in front of me, I have a typewritten sheet that has Brad's Top 3 on it. I do this every morning. I'm
not surprised that you own a typewriter. Of all people I know in my life that would have a typewriter, it would be you, Brad.
And you know what's interesting about this? Someone last week, it's funny you should mention this, someone last week said, do you know what IBM Selectric 2s are going for now? And
wow.
They're like $1,200. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I still have my IBM Selectric 2. I can't find it. I don't know what happened to it. I thought I had it. I don't know what, it's disappeared. I think somebody stole my Selectric 2 typewriter. See,
yeah, I think they probably did. Actually, if I was them, I would have gone for the helium tank.
I do have a helium tank, John.
I know that would have been. I think that would get more value on the street, and it could get people high. Brad, let's get back to Brad's top three, because is your number three? You saw a tweet from Bill Eigel and it made you mad?
No, it's just I'm just so tired of the RINO thing. I mean, I'm just so tired of it, and it's just a point where you're going to blow me out of the water. But you know what? Here's what's going to be interesting, because John is going to love Brad's number two. Are you ready for this,
I can't
John?
wait. Let's hear it.
Okay.
It's time for Brad's number two.
It is. It's Brad's number two, and it's called. Ready for this, John? The Sydney Sweeney bump. You know what the Sydney Sweeney bump is?
God, yes. Tell me more, Brad.
John is a big Sydney Sweeney bump guy. This brings two things into focus for John. Sydney Sweeney, who he's absolutely gaga over, and not because she's a lady. Get that?
I don't think we've ever discussed her before, but
there's an interesting aspect.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever discussed her on the air before, Brad.
Okay, here's the interesting part of it. Do you have any idea what I'm referring to when I say the Sydney Sweeney bump? I think John.
Yeah, I think most people who've had access to the internet or have a 401k know that Sydney Sweeney signed a deal with American Eagle, and they've had a bump. They had more than a bump. They had if you owned calls last week, you probably made enough money to go on vacation the rest of the year, because the announcement that Sydney Sweeney was teaming up with American Eagle sent the stock skyrocketing.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about it is I listened to a podcast, a marketing podcast, and it was fascinating because of the fact the guy talked about this. This happened this week. I listened over the weekend to this marketing podcast, and the guy was saying that the wokeness, this is a perfect example of why wokeness is dead. And he gave the example that all these brands, including American Eagle, decided to be very diverse with their models and have, the typical, hot number 9.5 to 10 models, plus the plus size models and the not so hot models, and even some of the
what a terrible, disgusting, dark era.
Right. And they all got their butts kicked. And like perfect example, he talked about how Nike stock went down when they did the sports bra for Delaney. What's her name? Mulvaney. What's the name? Mulvaney.
Dylan Mulvaney.
Dylan Mulvaney. The stock went down for Nike, and they're saying
and the whole Bud Light fiasco. And there's a bunch of other ones. The same thing. And what's interesting is this guy said this, and I thought this was fascinating. He says, people want to see people that they want to be, not who they are. Think about that. And you want something aspirational.
Exactly.
Let me interrupt, Brad. If you go to a gym and you see the visuals for personal training, and you see some oinker sweating who looks like they haven't showered in a while, they might be balding, they look disgusting and pale.
John, have you seen me at the gym?
Oh, that's what I could get if I hire a personal trainer.
John,
if you see a chick that you'd love to toss around, or you see a guy that's in decent shape, you think, aspirational.
See, and once again, I'm thinking to myself, why did it take this crazy weird thing where we go down this path of just throwing, saying, oh, white's now black and red's not orange. You know what I mean? It's just a point where
Yeah, I think so. Well, and you can make, if you were a big liberal, you would make the argument, well, it was worth a try, but the patriarchy won out, and Sydney Sweeney and her udders are now going to be swaying for men to look at in commercials.
Now, going back to my original point here, John, when you saw this thing happen with the stock market, did you think it was just because of the fact that she was a hottie, or what did you think that?
Oh, yeah. Well, but the thing is too, Brad, and we won't get too deep into the technicals now, but so much of stock trading today, and I say that not like people who proclaim to be stock traders, but so much is algorithm and momentum based, where it used to be humans making decisions. Now you have algorithms, at a Goldman Sachs or a BlackRock or wherever that see price movement. So when American Eagle pre-market might move up 3% based on a Sydney Sweeney news, then retail consumers might bump it up another percent. And then an algorithm kicks in and says, buy, 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 buy. And then that ticks it up another 4%. So you just have more dramatic swings. You have more dramatic volatility. I think it's been a few months since we talked about it. So, you have more volatility in the market because your trading is more based on momentum than it ever has been. So it's not unlikely to see, I don't know what it was that day, but it's not unlikely to see a 16-point pop. And American Eagle is pretty, I would describe that as either a small cap or a mid cap. I don't know exactly where it is in there, but it's not like IBM or NVIDIA, you know?
Yes. Oh, but I just thought it was sort of fascinating because they're calling it the Sydney Sweeney bump, which John would love to bump with.
Yeah, and real quick, Brad, before we get into your number one story there too, I saw someone post this the other day and I thought it was appropriate. Like in 1995, let's say, let's go back 30 years, in an era of Pamela Anderson and Yasmin Bleeth and Jenny McCarthy, we would see Sydney Sweeney and say, oh, wow, she's pretty. But because we're fed a constant diet of female leading women who look like they just stepped out of Weight Watchers for the first time, we're like, oh my God, a woman with a waist and an hourglass figure. And she actually smiles. Like in the 90s, she would be just another pretty girl. And in 2025, you're like, wow, she has decent skin and isn't an oinker. Let's give her a huge movie contract.
That is John Combest for all you women out there. And he does not give his phone number out in the air. But if you want to send something to me, I'll pass along to John, 314-280-8880. Okay, you ready for the number one, John?
Give it to me, Brad.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
For those of you who are always talking about how great it is in Europe, okay? And talking about how we have media bias in the United States. I saw this article the other day and I found it fascinating. If you go into Europe, John, have you ever traveled in Europe? You've gone to Europe before, right?
I've been to Germany. Yeah, that's the only place in Europe I've been.
Have you been there in the summer?
I have not.
Okay.
But I'm familiar with the fact they don't have air conditioning.
They don't have air conditioning in Europe for the most part. Part of it has to do with the fact that most of the buildings are old. You can't retrofit them with air conditioning ducts and things like that. Part of it has to do with the fact that it's not that hot in Europe. Well, now it's gotten hotter in Europe. Okay, there's a big controversy about air conditioning in Europe. And John, I am not making this up. In France, the media outlets have been warning that cooling a room to more than 15 degrees, 15 degrees Fahrenheit below the outside temperature can cause something called thermal shock, resulting in nausea, loss of consciousness, and even respiratory arrest, John.
Wow. I thought you were going to make an obtuse reference to getting a little nipply in there.
No.
Thermal shock. So wait a minute. So in Fahrenheit terms, if today it's 90 degrees in St. Louis, and we kept the house at 75, keeping it below 75 degrees Fahrenheit could cause thermal shock?
Yes. So in other words, today when it's supposed to hit 100, if our thermostats were lower than 85, we would go into thermal shock. Okay, there's more. Others fear respiratory infections that might result from spending long periods in air-conditioned rooms. Europeans who are particularly concerned about climate change want to avoid using electricity for air conditioning that would generate additional greenhouse gas emissions that would cause problems when we're outside. So this is, you think we have problems with American media? This is literally being being reported on European media outlets that if there's more than a 15 degree swing between outside air temperature and inside air temperature, you can go into thermal shock, John.
Oh, no. So every time, Brad, you enter your house, you go into thermal shock. What do you keep your house at?
Well, John, think about that for a minute. If you have decent air conditioning in your car and, if your car's outside, it's real hot. But let's say you drive for 10, 20 minutes.
I set it at 65. When I get in the car, I set it at 65.
So, John, If you were, I warn you, John, I care about you. I want to warn you about this. In other words, if you were to get your car down to 65 and you were to go like run in Schnucks real quick and come back out, and let's say your car was still at 70, you might have thermal shock in your car, John.
I believe it. Yeah. I'm going to start using that as an excuse when I yell at old people in the Deerberg slot. I'm going to pull a Brad Hildebrand. You pull out the card of saying, look, I'm deaf and I only have one eye. I'm going to say, I have thermal shock. Brad, are you ever going to give us the location and license number and social security number of the woman who yelled at you?
No.
Oh, okay. Was she Shelley Barr in disguise?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know
Was
who
she
it is.
Agnes Lamer in disguise?
No, I don't even know who she is. It's some woman. If you know the story yesterday, over the weekend, I got yelled at by a lady because of the fact my car radio was too loud.
And where were you? You can't say where you were sitting, but were you at a business parking lot?
No, I was not. I was
Were you at Benton Park about to fish for free fish?
No, it's just a bizarre, weird situation where I was stopped for a minute, and this woman comes up to me, and I look to my left, and I'm going like, okay, what's she doing standing next to my car? And then she starts in on me. You mean your radio's too loud? I'm going, oh, okay, well, excuse
Brad,
me.
in A Block, we talked about the fact that sometimes women that have a lot of anger and angst want to have a face-to-face confrontation with a powerful man. Do you think she saw your license plate and said, this man is either certifiably crazy or he maybe in the CIA or some sort of high roller?
John, it's July. I've already been pulled over once this month. Matter of fact, I got a couple more days to get pulled over again. I'm telling you, I do my,
You sure do, Brad.
I do my perfect traffic stops thanks to my son. Although, it's interesting. I should mention that I talked about this on the air. Was that last week when I got pulled over? The week before?
Yeah, every week you talk about the perfect traffic stop.
A guy told me one step further. He said everything I did was right. He says, take your hands and put them on the inside of the steering wheel and touch your dashboard. And I go, let me think about that for a minute.
Oh, like you're in handcuffs?
Yes. The idea being is that way the cop will see, okay, the guy's got his keys on the dashboard, he's got his car turned off, and he's got his hands where he can't make a sudden move for anything because his hands are essentially inside the steering wheel touching the dashboard. I thought to myself,
maybe you could interlock your fingers for him as well and say, here's the church, here's the steeple, open it up and see all the people. And maybe you could pull a Brad Hildebrand and just slump your head on the steering wheel like you do every day, Brad. Maybe that would make the cop feel better. Be like, wow, woe is this man. Yeah. I should not give him a ticket.
Right. No, or the other guy, I got all sorts of responses to that. The other guy said, which is a great line, he said, you look at the officer, you do all the right things I just told you. Look at the officer and said, officer, I really feel bad that I've taken time out of your day for you to give me this warning. See,
Oh, yeah. Hey, Brad, that's what you and your fellow salespeople would call thinking through the sale, right?
It's a presumptive close. That's what that
presumptive
is.
Close, yeah. Assume that you already made the sale and you're just working out the details.
You got it. Okay, we have to take a break.